let's start. Interview mechanics. I'm going to be as quick as I can and give you only the important things. I'm not going to talk about useless things. I swear, I'm not going to talk about eye contact and how to dress well and be authentic and be yourself and other time-wasting topics. It's just not going to happen. Actually, in preparation of this module, I bought all the online courses available in the world, like literally everything available. All the courses from the interview experts, if there's such a profession. And like literally, I mean, I spent a couple $1,000s, but more importantly, at least 48 hours of my time watching everything. And I really, really hoped that I could find value, value, something important, something different than how to dress well and be yourself, sell yourself, or have an eye contact, or what is a telephone interview? A telephone interview is, huge disappointment. So that's why I will not waste your time like how I wasted that 48 hours of mine. I know what you want, I know what you need, and I know you don't have 8 hours to waste to learn what a telephone interview is. Good? Let's get started. One more disclaimer. One or more of the concepts I share here may also be covered in the past in some of my YouTube videos. Not everything. I mean, like 90% of what I'm going to cover are not covered elsewhere. But if you see something that you heard before, just don't be disappointed. It's just not everything I'm going to cover here are covered elsewhere. In fact, majority not. If only I can speak. So, good. Number one, HR cannot fail an expert. Hiring managers can. Right? HR cannot. So, okay, I don't want to put it in black and white, but it's extremely unlikely because the hiring manager will backfire at HR for failing an expert, right? HR cannot understand if you're an expert enough or not, right? And you have to understand here that the quickest way to clear an HR interview is to show that you're an expert in your domain by making sure she clearly understands that you are no regular candidate. You're an expert in your field. So if you want to pass an HR interview, you're going to demonstrate two things, basically, right? That you are an expert in your field, you have the relevant skills and experiences, and two, you achieved it before, and that you can do it again. I know you're probably thinking, duh, right? But there's one thing very important here. It's the first one I mentioned, your expertise, right? HR, I repeat, cannot fail an expert unless you fail big time in other areas. So it's usually hiring manager that can assess your expertise. So throw in some jargon, right? Talk about how you're an expert when it comes to managing projects. Give examples. For example, let's say you are a project manager, right? The reason why you are really good at project management is because you studied and implemented all the project management frameworks like the PMI's framework and the Prince2 methodologies, and as a result you understand how to run projects very efficiently. Not many people can. So say that, not many people can, right? Because many people only follow one school of thought, right? No school of thought, or right, sometimes. So whereas you know all schools of thought and you can customize your methodology to the needs of the project. Let's give another example. Say you are a salesman, sales manager. Educate the HR in how you do sales. Tell her that the sales isn't about closing on the first call. Oh, did you know that over 90% of sales happen only after the 5th touch point? It's amazing, really. And then continue and then say, I think that's where majority of my colleagues in sales go wrong. They try to close on the first call and end up ruining the lead. Too much too soon, right? Whatever your expertise is, find some talking points that will demonstrate your expertise and tie that into the conversation. Good. Now, I want to tie this to another element. But before I do it, just a bit more priming. So, when you come to think of it, in that 1 hour or even less during the interview, all you do is character building, isn't it? They don't know you, so you need to build a character throughout your performance. It's a performance, right? I mean, be yourself. No, it's a performance. So you need to come across as relatable, easy to hang out with, likable, great team player, an expert, and more importantly, human. A real human being, not a paper, not a resume. So, we're going to talk about various ways to make you build that character in 1 hour. In 1 hour of your interview. We're not going to talk for an hour, but in your interview. And one of the ways you do this is through a mentor and mentee relationship. Let me explain. Remember, we want to convey the expertise, right? How do you get the expertise? You can get it from books, you can learn it yourself on the ground, or you can learn it on the ground from a mentor like a manager. So this shows them that you're an expert because you learned your traits from an expert, right? It sort of acts like a validation of your expertise, but also it demonstrates your coachability and the fact that you're a team player. Not everyone can follow a leader. And if you're thinking, but hey, I'm interviewing for a manager role, I am the leader. You're wrong. You're very wrong. There's always a layer up. There's directors, there are partners, there's senior partners, there's a chairman. It goes all the way to God. So every leader is also a follower. But on top of all these benefits, there's one more. And I believe that's the biggest reason why you should throw in that mentor and mentee relationship. It just builds your character in that performance, right? There's a reason why all the hit movies, like blockbuster movies, have mentor and mentee relationships. It ties to the fundamentals of our psychology, right? It's a proven concept, Look at movies like Matrix, Morpheus, right? Star Wars, Yoda, Lord of the Rings, Gandalf the Grey, Karate Kid, Mr. Miyagi. I can go on and on. So use this to your advantage. It's going to allow you to become a human being, not a piece of paper. So you pass interviews not because you have a landslide win in a certain criterion, right? But rather it's like collecting points, like 5 points here, 5 points there, and eventually you collect enough points to pass the interview. I mean, they may not literally give you points there, but essentially that's what it is. The stronger the character you build in that 1 hour performance, the better your chances are. And again, if you're a salesperson, you can tell your interviewer that, like in your previous company, your employer, you had a mentor. He was a total sales beast, right? And record number of sales every year, star of the company, in fact, star of the industry. It was the best training you could possibly have. He took you under his arms and taught you everything about closing a sale, the psychological triggers, the touch points, the negotiation of the offer, right? You learned everything from him. And in addition to what you learned from him, you also enrolled in so many training seminars or online programs, by industry experts like Brian Tracy. But you know what? The best training you still had was from your mentor, from your manager. It was like an MBA for sales from Harvard Business School. It was that good. And it also showed in the numbers. My manager and my mentor, right? We were the star performers. We created a company culture where we all pushed each other for greater success. It was a wonderful time. And I'm hoping that I will replicate that here with your company. Do you know what you just did here? You fished. What is she gonna say next? Think about it for a second. You said everything was wonderful, right? You had record number of sales and that you really hope you can replicate it here. What is she gonna ask? She's gonna ask then, if it was all so good, why did you leave? Now it's time for you to collect some empathy points. By now you've collected so many credibility and authority points, right? It's time to show that you're even more human, right? Then you say, yeah, it truly was a wonderful time, wonderful experience, but I'm afraid John passed away from a heart attack. It was a painful time, right? His drive towards pushing things were stronger than his heart. I just made up a story here. You don't have to, I'm not suggesting you lie or make up a story, but if you happen to have a story like that, make sure you milk it. So, good. The point is just receiving an emotional response. Emotional response is the trigger here. That's what we want. But the timing is also very important. You can only trigger an emotional response after you build a character, right? Again, think of it like the movies. The movie starts, you have no emotional attachment to the character, right? At the beginning, and his father dies, his mentor dies, and you're like, okay, no problem, whatever, right? So again, the timing is very important. but you need those empathy points. You don't want to stay as a resume. When you leave that table, you want to be remembered, and you want to be remembered as a human being. Okay, so now what do we do here? Right? We had so many emotional triggers, right? To create a strong bond. We turned a boring, soulless Q&A into an exchange between two people. We built a character. We are building a character. We proved that we're a high performer. We know the industry. We learned it from the best, that we are coachable also. We can follow leaders. And to top it all, we are a person. We bleed. We're not a paper. I should remember you. Next trigger is what I call the ladder effect. And this is very important for your hiring manager interview. You're going to have to make sure that he understands you are there to not only build your own career, but also his hiring manager here, his career. At the end of the day, life is very simple. As much as I like you, if it's between your baby and my baby, it's my baby. Right? Meaning my career is more important than yours. You do your job well, it'll have indirect positive effects on mine. Fine. But if I also feel that you'll go extra mile to make me look good in front of my managers, then you will definitely get extra points. Makes sense, right? So you're going to have to instill that message that you'll be the biggest enabler for him in his career. And if you need to pamper his ego a little bit, fine. What's the big deal, right? Look, at the end of the day, success in corporate career requires office politics and support from your troops, right? And I need to know my soldiers are going to fight for me, not just for our cause, but for me. Soldiers don't always fight for their country. They fight for their leaders. They fight for their commanders. Like US military carried out a survey on this in late 1950s, and that's what the results also showed. Most troops fought for their commanders. Interesting. Anyway, make sure that you give the signals that you'll do an amazing job for him, and you'll be the greatest enabler for him to get to even bigger heights in his career. Just make it subtle. Don't make it too obvious, right? Make sure he understands the message, and you're good. Next trigger is enthusiasm. You enter that room and make sure you light up that room with your enthusiasm. You have to make sure they understand you want that job. You want it so bad. Now, at the beginning of this video, I promised you that I'd stay away from super simple stuff, right? Like eye contact, and you may think enthusiasm is one of them. It is. But here's what was important. I still had to include this here because it's one thing to know and a different thing to be able to do it. Here's where the problem is. You just don't know how unenthusiastic you look and sound. Because you're a bit nervous, your emotions are subdued, right? You're about like 40% of how you are normally. It's quietened. It's like being in front of camera. It has a similar effect. I mean, look at my YouTube channel a year ago. I hate that thing. It's not me, the thing, you know? It's just not me. It takes practice. So during the time of an interview, you come across as really boring and serious and unwilling person. I know that for a fact. I mean, like, let me give you a couple examples. Like, as a hiring manager at PwC Consulting, I interviewed hundreds of people, right? Not only external candidates, but also internal candidates from other consulting offices from around the world. So let me share with you a story. I remember one time I had this amazing project to work as the project leader, and the client was a local government, and the project was developing their 2020 vision. Now, that's a dream project for any consultant. It's what we call a partner maker. Of course, it immediately struck the attention of all my PwC colleagues from around the world. You know, I started receiving hundreds of emails from PwC London, Tokyo, Shanghai, and New York, everywhere. You know, like hundreds of emails. Again, it's a partner maker of a project. Everyone wanted to be on board. And even them, highly decorated consultants weren't able to show their enthusiasm. They weren't able to show why I should really hire them in my team. They didn't really show me or my partner in charge of the project, why we should give them a chance, right? Not all of them, at least. It's not no easy task. And so when we included a few of those in our teams, we realized how great and enthusiastic they are actually. But they just couldn't show it in the interview. Now, obviously I, or the partner in charge of that project, we can look past that interview nerves. We are experienced enough not to judge a person in that half an hour conversation only. But not everyone has that kind of experience or even care. They don't care, right? Majority of your interviewers will get the message that you don't want the job enough. That's it. Okay, so that's why I believe the video down in this page, the interview simulation in virtual reality, is really going to get you ready. As long as you treat that video in your mind as the real thing, right? With your VR goggles. And so every minute you spend practicing with it will count as every minute of actual interview practice with a hiring manager. So don't just browse that video. Don't even open it until you're ready. Convince yourself that it's an interview. And another suggestion, when you're going through that practice video, video record yourself with your webcam or whatever you use, so you can see how unenthusiastic you sound or look. Good. Next trigger is confidence. Now, I have a dedicated module in LIG that helps you become more confident in interviews, right? So please make sure you watch that entirely, because what good is studying for your answers and practicing just to fail miserably because you cannot control your nerves? And if you find yourself in that situation, trust me, that's no longer you. It's a different version of you, right? It's not you. Do you know how many times I've seen candidates speaking like this? Like, I'm going to do a good job for you. I'm very hardworking and I really work hard. And I'm going to try so hard because I've done that before. And I always deliver good results. And right now, now you may not feel nervous when you're interviewing for a B-League employer, but trust me, you do get nervous when you interview for a top-notch employer with a really high salary package because you have a lot to lose, right? Of course you're going to get nervous. It's a threat. So, good. Let's move on. Oh, another reason why they usually fail nervous candidates is because they think that that's how nervous you're going to be when you're presenting something to your client. So if it's a client-facing role, it's extra important, right? Next one is be conversational and specific at the same time. What do I mean by this? Meaning, when you're asked, let's say, what are your weaknesses? Don't get into saying that my weaknesses are my inability to have a work-life balance. One, it's not conversational. Two, it's not specific, right? You're treating me like an idiot. What does that mean, your inability to have a, work-life balance? Converse with me and give me an answer. Treat me like a human being as I am treating you, right? So here's a better approach, right? They ask you, so what are your weaknesses? And then you say, yeah, that's an interesting one. I mean, one that I've been asking myself for quite a while. I have thousands of weaknesses for sure, but it's slightly challenging to find one that is relevant for my future role here. But I guess I can say my DCF benchmarks would be one of them. I'm very good at carrying out DCF, but I'm not necessarily very good in calculating the discount rates. I seem to have made a lot of errors in the past. But it's definitely something I'm working on. Good? See? The answer was conversational and it was specific, right? DCF, benchmark, discount rates, right? So let's move on to another trigger. It's about what you will do for them instead of what they will do for you, right? So your entire focus in the interview is about proving what you can do for them. And the key word here is proving. Now, how can you prove something that hasn't happened yet? It makes no sense, right? How can you prove that you will achieve success, right? It's not like you can promise, I promise I'm going to do a good job for you. It's not going to work, right? So, but what you can do is you can show them that you've done it before and that you can do it again. That's all you need to do. And the best way to accomplish this is by bringing with you to the interview a bunch of evidence from the past. So if you're a salesman, bring with you the screenshots from your Salesforce account. You don't use Salesforce? Fine, then bring an Excel printout with you. Bring something, whatever you have. This is a must. I'm not kidding with you. It's a must. It's not even negotiable. You will do it. I don't know if you know Carl Sagan, but I'll quote him here. He said, extraordinary claims require extraordinary proofs. Right? So if you're a project manager, bring with you your project plan copy, your execution marks, your project closing details, right? And the pictures of your end product. Literally, you were the PM of a construction project? Fine. Bring the pictures of the building along with the plans, right? You were the PM or the PMT, project management team member? Fine. You know, again, bring the plan and the variances and the screenshots of your software. Demonstrate the software if you can. Show them how it works. Let the interviewer visualize the whole thing and understand that you're not a fake. I cannot tell you how important it is. You just have to take my word for it. Bring with you the evidence. That's it. You say you're worth this position? You say you can do this job? You say in exchange for you doing that job, we should give you $100,000 a year? Good. Where's the evidence that you can do this job? I mean, do you want to see the evidence that I can pay you $100,000? Right? A piece of paper you call resume is supposed to be the evidence that you can do this job. Why should I take your word for it? I don't know you. Look, there are probably very few people on earth who have been interviewed more than I was. I mean, actually both sides. For job hunting, of course, I got interviewed a few times in my career. And then I switched the table and interviewed many candidates as a hiring manager, not HR. But I probably got interviewed thousands of times in my decade-long consulting career by clients. Each time we submit a proposal to our client, we literally get interviewed by the client. You know, a client hiring a management consultant is no different than a hiring manager hiring for a team member. It's pretty much the same questions. In fact, a lot detailed here. So, in fact, my job, not only more detailed in the interview, it's also a lot more difficult because they are going to pay you $1 million, right? They're going to pay you $1 million for a consulting engagement. So they really want to make sure that, that you sweat in those interviews. So when I go to those client interviews, I go with a big carry-on suitcase, you know, and, you know, one of those you see in the airports, right? So, and in that suitcase, I have thousands of files with me, all printed out. I'm ready to prove that I and my team have the required expertise and experience to handle that project. You want to know how we handled an M&A project? No problem. Here are the documents. Let me just open it for you, right? Let me walk you through them. You want to know about our execution capabilities for maybe strategy implementation? No problem. Let me take out the relevant certifications we have and the plans and the executions and the variances of the previous projects. Let me present them. I don't even ask if I can present them. I just take them out. So you don't have to ask if you can either. You know, oh, if you don't mind, can I? No, just take it out and start showing it, right? If they stop you, fine, but take the initiative. This topic is done. So before I conclude the video, I just want to say one more thing. I know you hate the process of having to sell yourself to this person you don't even know. That you have to study the questions and hit those emotional triggers that you have to practice. I know it sucks, especially, I mean, it definitely sucks, especially if you're an experienced candidate, right? It's just not fair, but you have to deal with it. I didn't invent the game, and if you want to play the game, then you have to get good at it. If you didn't want to play the game we call career, you wouldn't be here, right? It's not fair, fine. But, you know, world is full of unfairness anyway. I mean, we deal with it, right? It's unfair that an 8-year-old child in Africa is starving to death, right? It's unfair that a hardworking person gets $10 an hour, whereas another stealing, conniving person gets paid millions. It's unfair. It's unfair that native English speakers have a tremendous advantage in life and in their careers. We deal with it. You do whatever you can and you try to maximize your potential. Life is unfair. Interviews is one of those things. Even if you had a brilliant career for 20 years, 30 years, you still have to interview. You still have to do a very good job. Learn the questions, right? Understand the mechanics of an interview. Hit those triggers we discussed, right? Practice your talking points. Write down your talking points, right? Put in the work. If you don't want to play this game, then don't, right? Put up your own company and choose that route. The choice is yours. But what is hypocritical is you, on one side, wanting to have a good, great career, but not putting the work for those tasks that will get you there. See you on the next module.